The best of downtown from 7 to 8 a.m. on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and 929theticket.com. This is the best of downtown.
What a good Sunday morning to welcome in. Happy Mother's Day on this 11th day of May. A previously recorded edition of Downtown. I am Rich Kimball, along with Brian Stackpole, here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Worldwide, 929theticket.com. Be sure and follow us on Twitter at Downtown Rich K. The Facebook page, yours for the liking. It's Downtown with Rich Kimball. On the program today, some good stuff from a very busy week on Downtown. We'll talk with new Maine basketball coach Bob Walsh. His first interview before he arrived, or when he arrived in town. We'll play that back for you a little bit later. Get some insight into Bob Walsh from his former boss at Providence, former Friars head coach Tim Welsh, now a basketball analyst with Comcast Sportsnet New England, as well as ESPN. Got a couple of talented actors on the show today. Mike Farrell from the legendary TV series MASH will join us. And we'll talk with Caitlin FitzGerald, the Maine native, starring in the Smash Showtime drama Masters of Sex. Plus, we'll talk with Dana White, another Mainer who's done quite well for himself, thank you, as the president of UFC, a big event coming to Bangor on August 16th. President Dana White will talk about that with us here on Downtown. But we kick things off on this Sunday morning by meeting the new basketball coach at the University of Maine. Bob Walsh, been at Rhode Island College for several years as the head coach there at the D3 level. He was also an assistant at Providence College, and when we caught up with him, he had just met with his team for the first time. We asked him what attracted him to this University of Maine program.
Well, it's a similar situation, believe it or not. I really like the state school model being at Rhode Island College. It's a great university, Maine, and the opportunity that it provides, and also the diversity at a state school was really important to me. The community has so much energy, and the basketball community in the state of Maine is just so terrific. And I've known a number of the coaches for years, going back to a team camp that we've had at Providence College, and I just think, the energy in the basketball community in the state of Maine is terrific, and something that I think we can really capitalize on. And I love New England. I also, the leadership, Dr. Ferguson and Carlton Creech coming in and their kind of vision and the new leadership. It's just, it seemed like a terrific opportunity for me.
On your blog, you talk about how you can do more with less, which is obviously something that you're familiar with at RIC and that we need to do here at Maine as well quite often. And you talked about creating a brand. And at Rhode Island College, your brand was based on toughness, work ethic, sacrifice. Do you bring those same kind of things to bear here at the University of Maine?
Yeah, absolutely. Our brand is based on how hard we compete, and toughness goes right along with that. We evaluate the process. That's really my goal as a leader of the program, and I understand it's a results-based business, and that's what makes it hard. But, we're going to talk about what we do every day and the process that we go through and the way we compete, and that's really going to be the brand. I mean, my goal is when people walk out of the Cross Center, I want them to talk about, be talking, going, man, I love how hard that team competed tonight. And that's something I think we can control, and it comes down to creating the right culture and getting the guys bought into it.
You mentioned the Cross Center. Did you have a chance to see the facility when you were up?
I did. I took a walk through it with Carlton, and I was more and more energized every minute we walked through it. What a fantastic facility. I think it's terrific.
How do you get talented players to come to the University of Maine? We're a little bit off the beaten path here. What do you have to do to get them to buy into being a part of this program?
Well, the first thing you do, I've learned, is create the right culture. And the best recruiters that you have are your players in your program. Those are the most important people. So create a culture where, with high accountability, where there's a high level of trust, where excellence is both expected and demanded every day in everything we do, starting with academics and how we handle ourselves on campus and how we practice. And when you do that, I'm a big believer the culture attracts the talent more than the talent creates the culture. So, that's the first thing that you have to do is establish a culture. So when those kids are on campus, there's a feeling that they want to be, something that they want to be a part of.
We're talking with Bob Walsh. He's the new head coach of men's basketball at the University of Maine. I got into town today. You met with the team. How did that go?
Terrific, actually. We just got done, and some really bright kids and some smart kids. They had some great ideas for me. I mean, I wanted to hear from them. They know more about this program and this school and everything here than I do. So, I made sure to listen to them and hear what they were all about. And it seems like, it's a group that's really hungry. And I'm really, really looking forward to getting a chance to coach them.
You mentioned it's a results business, and people on the outside look at wins and losses primarily, but how do you measure success?
It's based on the process. It's what we do every day. Look, there's going to be games we lose where we practiced great and we competed hard and we played our tails off and the ball just didn't go our way, and that's okay, because if we do that more often than not, the results will get better. And there's going to be games that we win where, we probably didn't deserve to based on the way we competed. So we measure it on the way we compete every day. That's going to be, the currency that we trade is the merit we earn based on how we compete.
Tell us a little bit about your family and how they're feeling about the move.
Everybody's thrilled. I actually got married last August. My wife, Alicia, is really excited. She's she's from Rhode Island. She loves New England. My rest of my family is in New York. My mother and my brother live, I grew up just outside the city and went to high school in New York City, and they're thrilled about it. They're big basketball fans. They've supported me the whole way. It's a little longer trip to get from New York to Orono as opposed to Providence for games, but they're excited to do it. Well,
we're very excited to have you here. Coach Bob Walsh, the new head man in men's basketball at the University of Maine. We wish you much success. We appreciate you making time for us this afternoon, and we look forward to having you on as a regular part of the show.
Thanks a lot, Rich. Anytime. I appreciate it.
And that was new University of Maine men's basketball coach Bob Walsh from earlier in the week on Downtown with Rich Kimball, which airs weekdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Bob had his press conference on Friday afternoon and seems to be ready for this position at the University of Maine. You're tuned in to the Best of Downtown for this 11th day of May 2014. It's also Mother's Day, so if you're just finding and coming to that realization, you should probably go out to the store and get your mom a gift wherever you may be. Still got a lot of great show left to go for this Best of Downtown edition, including on the other side of this commercial break, as we'll hear from Mike Farrell, more commonly known for his portrayal as B.J. Honeycutt in the TV show MASH. He'll talk about his work of trying to get rid of the death penalty and also a little reminiscence on the show as well, as the Best of Downtown rolls on here for this Sunday morning.
We're back on the Best of Downtown for your Sunday morning. Well, Mike Farrell has had a remarkable career starting back in the 1960s. A regular on a number of television shows, had a stint on the soap opera Days of Our Lives, but of course best known for two television series, the legendary MASH, where for 8 seasons he played the character of B.J. Honeycutt, and then came back in the late 90s and early 2000s with a role on the NBC television series Providence. We're always happy to have Mike on the show. He's an outspoken critic of the death penalty in this country as well, and an activist who's worked on a number of causes through the years. He visited with us this week. We talked a little television, but also talked about his work on the death penalty, including a recent LA Times op-ed piece.
Yes, that's one of the many problems with the death penalty, but I think it's one that should resonate with people because anybody, I should say, nobody really wants to kill innocent people, at least nobody I know. And when we have a system that can protect the society by keeping us safe, by putting people behind bars and keeping them there, if necessary, for the rest of their lives, I don't understand how we benefit from committing murder, which is really what the death penalty is. It's legal, if you can call it that, homicide. As we've seen in Oklahoma recently, even the best intended way to execute somebody can go terribly awry and ends up in disaster.
You also shared the story in that op-ed piece, and I may mispronounce her name, but the woman from Iran, I believe it's Samira Alinejad, and the remarkable thing that she did recently. Can you share that story?
Yes. For those who didn't read or hear about the story, her son was murdered 7 years prior, and in Iran they do public hangings. And according to Sharia law, they give the family of the victim the opportunity to doing what they call kick out the chair. The person is standing in the gallows with a noose around his neck, in this case a young man who was the same age as her son, standing in the gallows with a noose around his neck, standing on a chair or standing on something. And the members of the aggrieved family have the opportunity to help kick the chair out from under him, which in fact means that he then dangles by his neck until dead. When given this opportunity, she came up to him, slapped his face, and helped him down from the gallows, and her husband came up and took the noose off around his neck and forgave him. And she said in doing so that her heart was lighter for having done this, and to have been a participant in another murder would have gone against every grain of decency in her body. And she and the mother of this young man who was about to die embraced. And I think for us as human beings, that's an extraordinary example of the benefit, if you will, of forgiveness.
We're talking with Mike Farrell here on Downtown. Now, this winter, you were invited to speak at the U.S. Air Force Academy. Given your vocal opposition to the Air Force drone warfare program, were you surprised at that invitation?
I was very surprised, yes, and wanted to make sure when the invitation came to me that they understood my position. And they told me that this was a year in which they wanted divergent voices, and they didn't want to keep I guess my name had come up in the discussion, and they said, well, we'd like to invite him in spite of the fact that he disagrees with our position. So I thought that was actually very good of them.
And you've always talked about the fact that as a former Marine yourself, you have great respect for the troops. It's the decision sometimes of those giving orders that you've taken issue with.
Exactly. Sure. MASH was certainly not an anti-military show. It was a show that was against sort of the arrogance of mindless authoritarianism, and I think that's what all of us who have been in the military would say, that the troops on the ground are the people doing the work of the people giving the orders, but if the people giving the orders are not mindful of ethics and understanding and human life and concerns, the legitimate concerns, then the military can go very wrong, as we have found in a terrible war in Iraq that cost millions of lives, hundreds of thousands of them being our own troops. It's a very delicate dance one does when you start talking about doing harm to other human beings, and I think we have to give it much more thought than we do.
Our political parties are more polarized than ever, gridlock at a higher level than in recent memory in Washington. So are we now, Mike, at a time in our history when any positive change really has to be initiated by the citizens?
Well, it's an interesting question, and the problem is that most of the citizens, or I should say many, I don't know about most, begin to feel discounted and as though they don't matter. And I think that's a real danger in a democracy. I was many people who opposed the going into Iraq, the Iraq War under the Bush administration, the second Bush administration. I was part of one of the greatest demonstrations against going to war in the history of the United States, with people in the streets all over the United States and all over the rest of the world opposing the action of the Bush administration going into Iraq before it happened. And the president dismissed it as a focus group. He said, I don't pay attention to focus groups. Well, that was not a focus group. That was the voice of the people. And I think when we have a situation, as you just suggested, where the people in Washington seem to pay less attention to the voice of the people than to their own pocketbooks or their own ideological fixations, then I think we have to take another look at what being a democracy means and what we as citizens are required to do about it.
we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your acting career. And last time we didn't get to talk about one of your key roles, and that's your time as Scott Banning on Days of Our Lives. Now, I have to confess, in college, I got a little addicted to Days of Our Lives for a while, and we had John O'Hurley from Seinfeld on a few weeks back, and he was talking about coming up through the daytime drama ranks with Bryan Cranston and others, and so many actors have found that this has been a real pathway to success. What is it about working in those daytime dramas that really hone your skills as an actor?
Well, it's very trying. I mean, the work is very much like being on stage, which of course is the way most of us started, and they're enormously popular, or at least have been in the past. I know I felt very lucky to get the role of Scott Banning on Days of Our Lives. It was the first. I had done some television shows and done some spots, some. Mostly very, very sort of minimal supporting roles, but I did some work on stage in the area, and one of the people who saw me was associated with the show, and I got the opportunity to come in and try out for this show. Got it, and it became the first real job running role that I ever had, and it was really a wonderful experience working with very fine actors. Doing a new play every day, and that was a grind, but it was a wonderful way to work and a wonderful way to learn.
Just recently,
it led to a primetime television series, and then another, and then a contract at Universal, and then ultimately to MASH.
Just recently, I caught one of my all-time favorite episodes of MASH, and it's one that you directed and also helped write the teleplay for, Death Takes a Holiday, where
yes.
BJ and Margaret try in vain to save a soldier from dying on Christmas Day so his family is not constantly left with that reminder. That, to me, is such a powerful episode. Were there some episodes that really resonated with you more than others?
Oh, sure. I mean, that one is one that really stuck with me. But I think for me, the initial episode called The Interview, the black and white half-hour, sort of based on the Edward R. Murrow idea of You Are There, I thought that captured the sense of the show, the sense of the reality that we were trying to portray better than any show that I've ever seen. And obviously there were others that meant a great deal to me personally, as BJ, the business of Radar going home and my daughter and wife meeting him at the port, and my daughter, a baby, thinking that because he was in uniform he was her daddy, broke BJ's heart that he couldn't be there with her, and disabuse her of the notion that this other guy was actually her father. I mean, those kinds of things were stories that touched me and touched us, but also I think they did so because they were so human and because they represented the experiences of so many caring people who did go off to war and served their country even when it cost them greatly.
And are you surprised that now, more than 30 years after the show went off the air, it still has this power and people still continue to watch and talk about this program as one of the greats in television history? I
agree, and it's a little odd for me to be able to say it because I was part of it, but I just consider myself the luckiest stooge in town for having been picked to be part of it, and the luckiest actor around for having been able to be there for as long as I was. And the fact that it does, I must tell you that when I was doing the show, people would always come up and talk about what it means to them and how important it was to them in so many different ways. And then a time passed, and people would say, I used to watch this show with my father, and now I watch it with my children. And I think, wow, to be part of something that carries on that legacy is okay with me.
And that was actor and activist Mike Farrell from earlier in the week on Downtown with Rich Kimball here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. You're locked into the best of Downtown for this Sunday morning. Happy Mother's Day to all moms out there in all the listening coverage. Glad to have you alongside us on this program. It's been a big week for University of Maine athletics, and we'll continue our conversation about the new head coach for the men's basketball program for the flagship school in the state of Maine, as we'll hear from former Providence head coach Tim Welsh, who was, of course, the head coach for assistant coach Bob Walsh back in his time in Providence. So we'll hear his conversation and also get some little inside information from the former Providence Friar coach as we return in just a few moments here on the Best of Downtown. Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
Best of Downtown, pre-recorded for your Sunday morning, so we can celebrate Mother's Day. Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and 929theticket.com. Bang a gong for your mom today, huh? Basketball, big topic this week around these parts with the hiring of Bob Walsh as the new head coach of men's basketball at the University of Maine. We thought it'd be fun to visit with a guy who hired Bob Walsh as an assistant at Providence. Tim Welsh was the head coach there for many years, also a successful coach at Iona, 8 trips to the postseason. These days, working as an analyst for both ESPN and Comcast Sportsnet New England. We asked Tim Welsh about his former assistant, Bob Walsh.
Well, I've known Bob a long time, family friends with his late dad and mom, and his mom still to this day, and just comes from a terrific family. His brother as well. I've known him since I was at Iona. Going way back when Bob in college, used to write me letters and work camps in the summer and just always try to find out what camp he could work and where he could always try to improve. And as long as I've known Bob, and that goes back to the early 90s, he's always tried to get better and better himself. And just, first of all, he's got the smarts, the intelligence, he's got the work ethic, he's got the personality, and the drive is there. He's a relentless worker, and no one will outwork Bob Walsh. And he's also fit in well with whatever job he's had. And I think this is a perfect fit for Maine and for him at this point in his career. And I'm happy for him, and I'm really excited for Maine because I know they're excited about winning, and they've got a winner in Bob Walsh.
How would you describe his relationship with players?
Oh, well, Bob is always, I thought, on our staff when we were at Providence, he was the guy that was always the extra man, the guy who was always doing the extra stuff in the office and you didn't have to give him a job description because he would take on anything, whether it would be extra meetings with players about academics, get in the gym with players, watch tape with players, or just take them out to lunch and make sure that they're doing okay with their life. And I think that's so important not only as an assistant but as a head coach. And I think Bob can do that as good as anybody that I've ever been around. And I think the proof is in the pudding that, once you leave, when players leave, do they come back and who do they reach out to? And the guy that they always reached out to most often than not was Bob, first and foremost, just to check in and say hello. And even the great players we had at Providence, you always saw that as they came back, they credited Bob for giving them the extra time and effort and just thought every day and helping them become a better player and a person and a better student as well. And that's what it's all about in college athletics. And I think Bob does that as good as anybody.
Well, of course, he's got that Division I coaching experience with you and then several years at Rhode Island College where he really built that program. What is it about those years at Rhode Island College, really starting almost from scratch and turning that program into a powerhouse in D3? What is it about that time you think might lead him to be successful here at Maine?
Living here still in Rhode Island, I got to see his teams up close and personally, and obviously just followed him from from being a friend and a guy that we love to talk basketball with and spend some time with personally in the off season as well. I'm just so impressed with the togetherness of his program from year to year, the toughness of his players, the teamwork. I think people are going to enjoy watching his teams play because they're going to play the right way. That's enjoyable. It's not going to be an individualistic style. It's going to be a style that's built around defense, about teamwork, about chemistry,
about family. And I think that's what Bob will preach. And listen, every coach, those are all catchphrases in the coaching world, and everybody's looking to achieve that. But how do you do it? And I think Bob's found the way to do it. I think that's just being a worker, being around the office every day, and always trying to get better. And also in the off season, working a lot of camps, talking to coaches, going to clinics, and involving himself in individual things that are helping him improve every year as a coach, and just trying to tinker with ideas to see what fits his team from year to year. And I think you add all those things up and you have a successful college basketball coach, and that's what Bob is. Everyone's trying to achieve those things, but I think Bob's found the formula because every day he's trying to improve himself, and I think that in turn improves his coaching staff, and in turn improves his players around him, and I think that's what you'll see at Maine.
All this talk about the National Football League draft coming up tonight. There is an NBA draft down the road not too far. As you look at some of the Celtics prospects for lottery picks, there are a couple of guys that they've really got their eyes on.
Well, I think everybody's got their eyes on the top three. You look at Joel Embiid from Kansas as a big guy. He's 1, 2, or 3. Andrew Wiggins, that's his teammate at Kansas as well, is a can't-miss athlete. I think biggest upside, probably he and Embiid. Not really ready yet to come in and dominate the game or turn a franchise around in the first couple of years. They're so young and raw, but down the road they're going to be really, really good players. Probably the guy that's most ready is Parker, and maybe Randall next from Kentucky. So those two guys, I still think the Celtics could make a trade depending on where they fall in the lottery. I know their eyes are on some players that are more established right now. But listen, that's what makes it fun. We're going to have a lottery show on Comcast, CSNE, Comcast Sports New England, on the night of the lottery, May 20th, from 8:30 to 10, and we'll have all the guys in the studio of Tommy Heinsohn reporting as well, and everybody will be spread out around Boston, and Mike Norman in New York. We'll be in studio with some of other experts that we have analyzing wherever the Celtics fall that night when the ping pong balls are dropped and the Celtics get their pick, and try to figure out then where they might go and who they might pick.
Tim Welsh covers the NBA, covers college basketball as well for ESPN, of course, for Comcast Sportsnet New England and Sportsnet New York. Thanks for being with us this afternoon, sharing some insight both on the NBA and your former colleague, Bob Walsh. We're very excited to have here at Maine.
Well, we're excited to be on your show at any time, and we'll look forward. Hopefully, get up for a game next year. We got a lot of friends in the great state of Maine over the years. They were just the number one attendees of our basketball camp through the years. Some great guys, some great basketball guys, and now you've got a tremendous leader in Bob Walsh, and we're excited that he's up there, and I know he's going to do great.
And that was ESPN, CSNE, and SNY analyst for the college basketball ranks, Tim Welsh, also former coach at Iona and Providence College, joining us on Downtown with Rich Kimball to talk about Bob Walsh, the new head man for the University of Maine men's basketball program. You're listening to the Best of Downtown here for this 11th day of May 2014. Glad to have you alongside with us. Another break approaching here on the program, and on the other side, we'll hear from a Maine native. It's Caitlin FitzGerald, who appears on the show on Showtime, Masters of Sex, as she'll talk about her career and also the show as we continue on. Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket here for this Best of Downtown edition. We'll be right back with much more here as we roll on.
It's the Best of Downtown on your Sunday morning Mother's Day edition. Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole here. One of the fun things about the show is that we're not strictly limited to covering sports. We love to talk about folks and with folks in the entertainment world, especially when there's a Maine connection. And that happened with us again this week. Caitlin FitzGerald grew up in Camden and has gone on to great success as an actress, has been in movies like It's Complicated with Meryl Streep, but right now starring in a smash Showtime television series, Masters of Sex, all about the sex researchers Bill Masters and Virginia Johnson. When we talked with Caitlin FitzGerald this week, she told us when she first figured out that she wanted to be an actress.
I was a baby. I think my first play, I was 6 years old, and it was the school play. And as my mom loves to recount, I said everyone else's lines, including my own. So I've caught the bug early, I guess.
Well, you've got a great background. You studied at the Tisch School for the Arts at NYU, at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London, and it's been quite a meteoric career here. In the movies you did It's Complicated with an all-star cast, which had to be fun, but maybe a little bit intimidating, too. What was it like working around all those veteran actors?
It's funny. I auditioned for that movie for about 6 months, and it was the first movie I really did. And I auditioned and I auditioned and I auditioned and I wanted the part so badly. And then I remember the day I got the part, I was suddenly absolutely terrified and paralyzed with fear that I was not going to be able to do it. And they were all so wonderful to me and helped me out even when I was making quite rookie mistakes.
What did you learn from all those folks?
To enjoy it as much as possible. Like, the thing that I took away, certainly from working with Meryl Streep, is just how much fun she's having. And that's essential, really, because there's so many unfun things in the business that when you're actually on the job, you got to enjoy it as much as you can.
Now, you also came to Maine to make your own movie that you helped write, entitled Like the Water. You filmed that in Camden, and a very personal movie for you.
Yes, indeed. It's a story of a young woman who suddenly and shockingly loses her best friend. And it was modeled, both I and the co-writer had experienced a similar sadness in our lives in our early 20s, and we thought it was an interesting thing to write about.
We're talking with Caitlin FitzGerald. Showtime's Masters of Sex makes its Season 2 debut on July 13th. You're actually in the process of filming Season 2 right now. So when you got the call first and someone said we're interested in you for a series called Masters of Sex, were you thrown a little bit by the title and think it was something different?
Sure. Yeah, a cable show called Masters of Sex, you're not quite sure what your agents think of you as when they send you that script. But that first script, the pilot script that I read, was so good that it immediately became clear that this was not just pornography.
Well, it's such a wonderful cast of Michael Sheen, Lizzie Kaplan, Beau Bridges, Allison Janney, so many very talented people in the show. And I'm a big Mad Men fan, and I always think Mad Men is kind of the story of how men in the 1960s had to adapt to changing times. And I think Masters of Sex explores that from a women's perspective in the 1950s. Every one of the female characters is finding themselves and finding independence.
Yeah, that's such a nice way of putting it. I haven't heard that before, and I love that. I think, we have a female creator and head writer and a female producer, and what I love about the show so much is that there are all these different female characters, and they all feel like whole people, comprehensive human beings, but they're all totally different from each other. Often I find that women get sort of reduced to, like, the good girl or the bad girl or, like, the mean boss. Or so it's nice to see all different kinds of women, and they all feel real to me.
Now, you play the part of Libby Masters, the wife of Bill Masters, the sex researcher who, in Season 1, went through some challenges along the way, and that character could be, I think, it would easily be a sad character, and yet you seem to have found not only a strength in Libby, but also some optimism for her as well.
Yeah, I think historically and the way that she's written, my take of Libby is that she is sort of a perennial optimist, despite the tragedy that she's lived through and before the show and during the first season. So that's been important. It gets challenged even further in Season 2, but I think she's hopeful at bottom.
Now, when you're playing real characters, historical figures, how much time do you put into researching what they were like, or how much do you rely on the writers to help you tell that story?
Well, I couldn't find all that much research about Libby, unfortunately. However, I did do a lot of reading about sort of true accounts of women in the 50s and did a lot of research about the time period because I thought that would inform, her choices and her behaviors.
You got another couple of projects I want to talk about, too. One is that you've I think you finished a movie with Nick Kroll, Bobby Cannavale, Brothers Keeper. Talk about that a little bit.
It's a great script. It's such a sweet and wonderful movie. I play a not very sweet or wonderful person, but it was a blast to work with those guys. They're so wonderful.
And this weekend, I happened to see that you were at the Mayweather fight. Tell me about that.
I was. It was my first time in Vegas and my first time at a boxing match, and both were quite the experience. The fight was really good. They seemed evenly matched, despite Mayweather's win, and Vegas is very different than Maine, I would say.
Yeah, I would say some subtle differences there, absolutely.
Yeah, just a few.
How often do you get back to your home state?
Oh, whenever I can. I miss it so much when I'm away, and I try and be there for sure in the summer, and then usually around the holidays.
So you're filming season 2 of Masters of Sex right now. Without giving too much away, is this going to be another challenging season for Libby Masters?
Yeah, Libby has a pretty intense growth period throughout this second season, and a pretty remarkable journey that she's on. I'm not sure how much more I can say than that, but she sort of comes out of her naivete a little bit.
And that was Caitlin FitzGerald, the actress who is in Masters of Sex on Showtime. A great show. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out because of the main flavor and also the great programming on that fine station. You're listening to the Best of Downtown, and be sure to keep it locked to 92.9 The Ticket for great coverage throughout the day and throughout the afternoon because, again, where else are you going to go for all the greatest in local and national sports but 92.9 The Ticket? We'll take another break, and we've got a great guest coming up on the other side. It's one I've been trying to track down for a long time. It's none other than UFC boss Dana White, who talks about the big announcement about the big Fight Night event coming to Bangor on August 16th. We'll hear that coming up in just a little moment here as the Best of Downtown rolls on. Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket.
Gotta get up, gotta get out, gotta get home before the morning comes.
There's always something going down at the Down Under Club, located at 427 Main Street, downtown Bangor, under Seasons Grill and Lounge. The Down Under has karaoke every Tuesday, and on the weekends, it's wall-to-wall party people dancing the night away to live bands until 1 a.m. A $5 cover charge gets you the best drink specials in town, and the Down Under is a great place to stop after your event at the Waterfront or Cross Center, which is located conveniently just 2 blocks away. Find them on Facebook or call 992-2250 to get information on these special events, including their sold-out comedy nights. So come enjoy the thunder at the Down Under.
Back on the Best of Downtown. Keeping up with a theme here. Mainers doing well in the big time. And few have done better than our next guest, Dana White. Grew up in Levant, went to Herman High School, class of 1987, and is now the president of UFC, easily the fastest growing sport in the world. They signed a mega deal recently with Fox Sports to televise their bouts, but they are bringing an event to Bangor on August 16th, UFC Fight Night. And Stack, let's cut to the chase on this thing. Bangor has no right to have a show like this because they normally do these events in major markets.
Right. Maybe Portland would have an outside shot, but the fact that Dana White grew up in Herman, went to Herman High School, and has a strong ties to this area is the reason why Bangor is having this event.
Absolutely. And that's what we talked about on Friday when Dana visited the show, and he explained how this all came to pass.
Well, this is a personal thing for me. Obviously, I spent a lot of time up in Maine as a kid growing up, and I got a lot of family up there. I then later bought, I grew up, I went to Summers. I had a couple of years of school there, and I graduated from Herman. And I ended up buying a lot of property out in Levant. Me and my family spend a lot of time there. So this was more of a personal thing for me. Right when they started to rebuild the arena and do all the renovations, I went up and walked through it. They showed me what they were going to do, and it almost became a dream for me to get this thing done and to bring the UFC to Bangor.
Well, it's great, and you gave a lot of credit in the paper to the folks at the Cross Center and the Global Spectrum people, too, for making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. The casino and the arena really really help make this thing happen. I don't think people realize, like, oh, another event's coming to Bangor. It's so different than any other event that the city has ever had. When we do these fights, there'll be kids fighting from all over the world on the card, and people fly in from other countries, from all over the United States, and our fan base. You know, they get hotel rooms. They'll be at the mall. These guys will be in restaurants. They'll go out at night to bars and clubs. It's really going to have a serious economic impact on the city of Bangor. That will be very noticeable.
Well, absolutely, and plus the television coverage on Fox Sports 1, which is a great way to showcase not only the city but the venue.
Well, not just Fox Sports 1. This thing will air in like 170 countries and territories and almost 1 billion homes worldwide.
That is phenomenal. Dana White, UFC president, with us here. This Fox deal in general, that was a great coup for your organization. How successful has that been for you?
It's been fantastic, and you know, the guys at Fox I've had a lot of television deals over the last 13 years. These guys are the best we've ever worked with. They're phenomenal. I couldn't say enough good things about them.
Now, you're in Cincinnati, a big fight night coming up tomorrow night, 13 bouts scheduled, a big one between Matt Brown and Eric Silva. What do you expect for action tomorrow night?
I love that fight. The thing is with that fight is Matt Brown's ranked number 7 in the world, fighting Eric Silva, who's ranked number 14, but the media ranks the fighters, and that ranking is way off. Actually, Vegas has Matt Brown a 2.5-to-1 underdog, and he's ranked number 7. Silva's ranked number 14. Both guys are nasty. It's going to be a great fight.
That's tomorrow night in Cincinnati, the UFC
it's
fight.
It's live and free on Fox Sports 1 tomorrow night.
Gotta love that. Now, as far as the other Silva, Anderson Silva, you've said you expect him to make a return this year. Is that still in the cards?
Absolutely. He's 100% cleared to train. So 4 or 5 days ago, they cleared him to train. He's ready to get back training again. What people don't realize, as human beings, we have a hard time wrapping our brains around that bone breaking in the shin. When that bone breaks, it freaks people out. But it's a bone break, and the thing heals in 6 to 8 weeks.
Dana White's with us here, and I have to ask you, as a kid growing up, going to Herman High School, class of 87, if anybody had said to you, Dana, down the road, you're going to be the president of the fastest-growing sports deal in the planet, did you see that as a possibility for yourself?
I absolutely did not. If you back in school when they used to have all these things, I would have probably been least likely to succeed. So, no, I didn't see it coming.
So where do you go from here? What's the future hold for UFC?
We continue to grow. I mean, we just did a huge deal down in Mexico with Televisa, and we did a press conference down there. And Televisa is the monster television network down there. And the press conference we had down in Mexico City last week, the biggest press conference in the history of the television network. And you saw how successful we've been in Brazil. Latin America is going to be exactly the same for us. This thing continues to grow. We just busted into China. We're doing another fight in Japan. We're going to South Korea again soon, which is a huge market for us. We're getting ready to open up India. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. My travel plan, I try to get to Maine as many times as I can throughout the summer because I have such a blast up there. It's going to be tough to get up there as much as I like to this summer.
Well, we know you'll be here August 16th for the fight night at the Cross Insurance Center. It is huge stuff. UFC coming to Bangor. Dana White, thanks so much at this busy time for coming on with us. Congratulations on your success, and I know from everybody who's a fan, thanks for bringing this terrific event to Bangor.
Pleasure. Thank you. I love Bangor, and hopefully this is a huge success, and I can bring a lot more up there.
And that was UFC President Dana White, who we've been trying to track down for a good year plus. Big event coming to the Cross Insurance Center August 16th. It's fight night in Bangor. Should be a great event. And as he mentioned in the interview, people from all over the world are going to be watching this on Fox Sports 1 and through affiliates throughout the world. And they'll also be coming into Bangor, Maine to watch it because the UFC is huge. And we're honored to have this great event in the city of Bangor coming up in just a couple short months. So thanks to Dana in his busy schedule making some time for us last week on Downtown with Rich Kimball. And we look forward to that competition coming up, as I mentioned, August 16th at the Cross Insurance Center. We'll take our final break of the Best of Downtown program, and on the other side, we'll wrap up this edition of Best of and preview what's to come on Monday on Downtown with Rich Kimball here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Still a little bit more to come here as we roll on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
Ready to wrap things up for Sunday morning Best of Downtown. Rich Kimball and Brian Stackpole. Thanks to everyone who was a part of our Best of show today. New Maine basketball coach Bob Walsh, former Providence head coach, now ESPN analyst Tim Welsh, actor Mike Farrell of MASH, Caitlin FitzGerald of Masters of Sex on the Showtime Network, and Dana White, the president of UFC. Thanks to all of them for being with us today on the program. Coming up tomorrow, live downtown at 4 o'clock, baseball talk with Steve Trimper, the Maine coach, after the weekend series with Albany. Eric Avedon, Red Sox beat writer from the Metro West Daily News. We'll talk Bruins as well after a playoff weekend, and, of course, recap what happened in the NFL draft, update you on Maine players as well as all that. Plus movie reviews, Alan Adams of the Maine Edge. On Past the Popcorn, Steve McKay's weather for the week as well. All coming up on a live edition of Downtown tomorrow afternoon at 4. Don't forget to start your day with Dale Duff and Clem Labrie on the morning pitch. They get going at 6 a.m. right here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. A very happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We'll see you again tomorrow afternoon at 4 right here on Downtown.